Ever since the first introduction of VR to the gaming space, I had hoped it would be the defining thing that completely changed how we played games forever. I must say that anime hasn't helped with my desired perception of the gaming future either, but if there's one thing that terrifyingly meshes well with VR, it's horror games. And experiencing Resident Evil 4 in VR is something my body has been craving for a very long time. And thanks to Oculus, the sponsor of today's video, we got Resident Evil 4 VR early to be one of the first people to deep dive into its glory. They sent us over the Oculus Quest 2 and setup was honestly a breeze. Not long after unboxing, I found myself departing on my journey to save the President's daughter. Right out the gate, the opening menu is an immersive 360-degree view of the church in the village. Though I can't help but look around and take in the old glory from my new first-person experience, this initial opening gave me chills, and I just can't wait to get started. Before I start up the main story, I notice there's a gun range you can go into, and you know I'm all about that life. So I pop on in and I look to bust some caps and get a feel for how shooting is gonna feel in VR. Right out the gate, I love it. The gun models are very clean and the details are on point. Reloading was a curious thing at first, but after getting to do it a few times, it began to feel natural. You actually have to manually reload the weapons. The level of realism with the guns is awesome, like having to release the slide on the handgun before it's loaded after you put a new magazine in. If you don't release the slide, your gun will never load. Even with the shotgun, it requires a shell to be chambered, which you must do the whole cocking motion with the Oculus Touch controllers before you can blast away. It's funny how with the shotgun, I felt the need to put my head as though I was shooting a real shotgun. That's why the camera angle tilts a little bit the entire time I'm shooting it. VR, playing with my real-life muscle memory over here. After getting comfortable with blasting, it was time to jump into the main story. The initial game setup asked you to choose your difficulty along with a bunch of VR-related questions such as how you intend to play the game, standing, or sitting. And I will say, I went standing right out of the gate but did switch to a sitting position after some time in the game. You're asked to determine your dominant hand and you choose a comfort setting that is divided into full motion and comfort mode. I never went to comfort mode as I wanted the full VR experience. So I chose full motion, which is described as being the choice for people with VR experience and who are not prone to motion sickness. Looks like I'm a pro and a sailor now. Right out the gate, this game does something that I really like. It has two viewing modes. One that's like you're watching a giant screen in front of you while cutscenes play out, and the other view is obviously immersive 360-degree full environment. My understanding is the game doesn't have a whole lot of changes story-wise, so the beginning cinematic plays out as is, just like on a movie theater screen. The first thing that happens is we get on the banana phone with Hunnigan as we manually answer the call. This then causes the radio phone to flip out into the OG looking screen from the original game, which you can then wave around like you just don't care. I really like this idea of taking our calls with Hunnigan and giving them a modern day feel. Video chatting feels modern despite the time period the game takes place in. Back in the day, I just assumed they showed the characters together on screen for the player's sake, so you knew who you were talking to and what they looked like. Once we hang up and move through a weapons management tutorial, immersive or bust, it's time to take our first steps in-game, and let me tell you, it completely caught me off guard. Moving around the beginning area of the game, I start to get a hand on the feeling of moving in VR, and I'm ready to push forward. The first shooting encounter involves the Black Crows that are waiting for us on the trail, and you better take notice of my side hand when I draw up my pistol to dispatch them. As I walk over to the pillars of light protruding from their bodies, my next favorite thing in the game happens. I'm prompted to pick up the money they drop, and when I go to grab it, I actually pick it up and hold it. I don't know why, but this is like my favorite thing ever. Maybe it's the years of just having the number pop up on my screen and then it just being added to my inventory. But here I am, 16 years later, holding the currency I've been collecting ever since then for the first time. Just like anything else you come to hold in your hands, you can wave it around and look at it from multiple angles, which is just awesome. But let's talk combat, because we know when we go into this house, the owner is going to try to hit us with an axe. And this is when I realized just how satisfying all this gameplay was going to be. Resident Evil 4 was always about standing still with your knife and swinging, but now we have the freedom to run and swing at the same time. I head upstairs and bust out the window, and that's when I realized just how many more options I have in VR that I didn't have before. The third-person view limited the angles you could shoot out windows, but now you can actually lean out in VR, stick your arm out, and shoot people right below you. It's incredible. You can now dual-wield your knife defensively to strike opponents near you as you gun down others too. Leon is a lot more versatile and deadly in VR, but the VR setup gives us the ability to check out out situations that normally we wouldn't be able to as easily. Like walking up to a building and leaning into the window, barely peeking through the glass to see if anyone is inside. Stuff like this completely changes your approach. Instead of just knocking down the door, we can choose to be stealthy, and it changes the game experience. On a side note, inventory management is pretty clever as we can see the full spread of our case with ease within VR. We can use our watch on our wrist to gather other information that we need without the need for a HUD. And any objects we find along the way can be picked up and examined before being collected. So we move on into the countryside, dodging all the shoddy traps that were set up before us. And as we draw nearer to the village, we come across the dog with its leg trapped. And I felt like a true hero, physically prying this bear trap off its legs with my controllers. And all of this, up until this point, has been incredible. But all I can think about this entire time is what it's going to feel like once I get to that town and the swarm descends upon me. I'm anxious, but excited. And it isn't long until we make our way through the countryside and come face to face with that faithful encounter. And I gotta say, it was more than I expected. Playing this game over the years, this area was always a lot of fun, but the difficulty definitely spikes up in VR. You have to remember, while you do have increased speed and more options for attacking, you also have to manually perform your attacks, reload, etc. It's no longer the click of a button. You attack faster, but tasks can take longer. And you're under a lot more pressure because your body is reacting to the mob in front of you. You want to dodge things coming at your face. You want to make sure no one is sneaking up behind you. And when you get overrun, you panic. You make mistakes, and that makes the experience really immersive. Spacing between you and your enemies feels completely different when you're measuring that distance in real time. You get your hand on the grenade real quick when you want to silence the herd, and with the pluck of a pin, suddenly the tension eases up. This balance is what makes this whole ordeal exhilarating. And experiencing this swarm of enemies in VR only got me more excited for the rest of the game. Once I got my shotty, I was ready to rock and roll. But even just the first section of the game exceeded my expectations for what was possible. The horror element feels different. It's more in your face and real. And if you goof up, you'll pay the price. But that's also what makes this incredibly fun. I'm definitely looking forward to trying out more of the game. And I want to once again thank Oculus for allowing me to try this game early. I hope you enjoyed this quick look into Resident Evil VR, and we'll see you again real soon on Horror Scoped. P.S. I love this.